This week, I'll do something a little bit different. We're going to get into a Dvar Torah that I was able to work out together with my wife, actually. We discussed these things. We're on the same page economically and philosophically and ideologically, thank God. So we noticed something. I noticed something in last week's Parsha in Re'eh. And we'll go into the pasuk for a second, but what's going on is that Moses is still speaking, and he's not yelling at us as much as he was last week. In Akev, it was just him disciplining us and chastising us for our past mistakes. This time, he's going into what we've got to do when we get into Israel and the way we have to behave. So there's one line in it that has to do with silver, has to do with money. And we're going to get into that. But before we do, there's another special a special aspect of this of last week's parsha and this coming week's parsha. It's one of the Shiva de Nechemta. It's one of the 7 portions of comfort, because it happens in one of the 7 weeks after Tisha B'Av, after the 9th of Av. And the Haftorah that we read, the Haftorah is the reading from the prophets that we read after we're finished with the Torah portion, is from Isaiah chapter 55. And it has to do with Isaiah comforting us, Yeshayahu comforting us, and saying that things aren't as bad as they seem, and with a lot of comforting poetry about how good the future is going to be. So the problem is, you can't just have a random section of Isaiah, a random section of Nach, of the prophets, after a portion that isn't connected to the portion in some way. Meaning there has to be a specific connection to the Torah portion that the prophet is reflecting off of, because there's nothing new in the prophets. The prophets are just reflections of Moses' original prophecy, meaning they're inferior prophecies. So that means that Chazal, the rabbis, can't just pick a random portion of the Haftarah that is not connected intimately to the actual Torah portion. The question is, what is the connection between Re'eh, between last week's portion, and the Haftarah? And I believe I found it. So we're going to go into that. I'm going to share screen here. Here it is. This is not the right tab here. This is I was looking at mortgage rates. So let's X this and zero hedge. Yeah, that's the wrong one. Okay. So we have here Devarim Perek Daled, Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 24. We'll go back one verse, 23, to see the context here. So it says here, Masar deganecha v'tirshcha yitarecha b'karcha v'tzonecha leman tilmad li'yirat Hashem elkecha kol hayamin. So I'll translate this myself. You can read the English in the bottom, but I like doing my own translating because I don't really trust this translation so much. So it says here, you will eat before Hashem your God, in the place that He decides to rest His name in. Your tithes and your food and your grapes and your oil, all the stuff that you bring, and the firstborn of your cattle and your sheep, so that you learn to fear God all of your days. So this is us bringing all of our stuff to the temple, all of our maaser, all of our tithes, everything that we have to bring to the temple, we bring to the temple. Now here is the caveat. So what happens if you're too far away? You can't bring all this stuff. It's too much. You're too rich. It's too far. So if the way is too long for you because you can't carry it all, and the place that God chose to rest His name is too far from you, because God blessed you so much, you have so much land and so much stuff, you just can't haul it all there. It's too much for you. So the next verse says, "V'natata b'kasef, v'tzarta hakasef biyadcha, v'alachta l'makom asher yibchar Hashem elokecha bo." So it says here, what do you do? So it says, okay, so you can sell it. You can sell the stuff. And you can sell it for money, for silver. Kasef is literally silver. So let's not use the word money, use the word silver. You sell it for silver, and then it says this is a superfluous preposition here. V'tzarta hakesef biyadecha. You should wrap the silver in your hand. This is a very physical statement here. And then v'alachta l'makom, then you go to the place that God chose, which is the temple in Jerusalem eventually. Now, the question is, why does it say wrap the silver in your hand, right? If we go to then we go to the next verse, it says, "V'natata kesef b'chol asher taveh nafshecha." then you can give the silver for anything that you want, for animals or for wine or for beer or for any alcoholic beverage, anything that you want. You can eat there and in the place so they got chose, and you can be happy there with your whole family, with your whole household. So the question is, Vitzarta kesef biadecha, that is superfluous. Obviously, I'm going to put the silver somewhere. I'll put it in my pocket, and I'll put it in my bag. But why is it telling me I've got to put it in my bag? So I think the answer is here. Chazal's answer is a drasha, and it is a halacha that they say vitzarta. That means that it has to have a tzura. That means it has to be minted. It can't just be a silver glob or a piece. It has to be a standardized minted volume that is recognizable. Let's say a gram or an ounce or whatever the unit is, a shekel, that people can recognize, and they don't have to weigh out. They can see that it's a coin and has a stamp on it, and it's good. But the problem is, okay, fine. I agree that that's a halacha, but then you come to a historical anachronism here. They didn't have coin minting until the Second Temple times. There was no coin minting in the First Temple times. So it could be that Chazal made this halacha as a stringency so that exchange would be easier. So you didn't have people just coming with like silver blocks, impure stuff that wasn't minted, and it would just make commerce very difficult. But anyway, I think the pshat here, that halacha aside, that it does have to be minted, is that it's telling you that you cannot use derivatives here. You have to use actual money. Now, what's the importance of that? You have to take the money in your hand, you have to wrap it in your hand, and put it somewhere. Now, why wouldn't you be able to use derivatives or derivative of money in the temple? Meaning you can't sell your stuff for, let's say, like a wire transfer into your bank account, and then in your bank account in Jerusalem, take out the money in cash or in paper or anything like that. It has to be silver coins, right? Now, what is the special thing about the temple? Like, what are we trying to accomplish there? Well, the temple is I'm losing my English. It's a concession to the fact that we are physical beings and we need something physical. We can't just be pure spiritual worshipers, because that leads to eventually idolatry, because we'll be craving for it. We'll be craving for some kind of physical experience, which we still crave for today, singing or seeing something, bowing down, being in a certain atmosphere. All that is physical. And as physical beings, we do crave that and we do need that. But the problem is that cannot be uncontrolled. So the Torah is telling us here that, yes, it understands our physical need for a worshiping ceremony or a worshiping procedure, but it wants it to be extremely focused. I mean, you can't go anywhere except for the temple. And what is the temple? The temple is the place where the physical meets the spiritual. They come very, very close together, but like asymptotes, they never cross. You can never cross those two things, because then you get into avodah zarah. So the challenge is you have to join the physical and the spiritual to as close as they can get, but they can never really touch. Right? That's the challenge of it. And in the temple, we have in the Beis Hamikdash, we have every sense, every physical sense is stimulated. We have food, we have a great barbecue, we have the smells of the barbecue, we have the incense in the temple, we have the singing of the Kohanim, we have a choir. Usually Jews associate a choir with, a reformed temple or some kind of conservative or reform non-halachic ceremony where you have this like chazanus and choir. It seems very, German and European and not very Jewish, but actually, at the temple, that was the thing. The Levites, the Levim, were singers. So you had every sense being stimulated, touch, dance. You could see the magnificence of the place. And now the danger of going into a derivative then is that everything that we do, especially in the modern world, is a derivative of what should be, right? We even the food that we eat, a lot of it isn't really food. Like if you take a soda or a processed food, what it is it's derivatives of food that are combined in a certain way to fool you with, let's say MSG or some kind of thing to make you think that it's actual food, and you're eating this stuff that is really food derivatives and putting it in your body, and then you get sick. And then we've taken natural medicine out of our pharmaceutical repertoire, and we we synthesize these derivatives of natural molecules that are supposed to manipulate our body and make us even sicker. Or whether we're talking about using derivative money to buy derivative food, or even when we listen to music, we're not actually listening to music. We're listening to a derivative of music, because music is when somebody takes a musical instrument, a violin or a piano, and plays it to you, and you hear the vibrations of the sound from the musical instruments. We cannot do that in the temple. It has to be actual musical instruments that the Levites are playing, the Levium are playing, whether it's trumpets or string or harps or whatever is being played in the temple. It has to be actual music, right? The music that we listen to is at best, recorded, or even if it's at a concert, it's through an electrical speaker that we don't actually hear the music. And it gets, and as technology gets more and more sophisticated, we have these programs that make the voices of the singers perfect, and making them like an auto tuner, that everything sounds so manipulated and artificial that it's not even really music. It's just something that's designed through understanding what the technical formula for music is to play to us, and we're supposed to appreciate it. Or it's even going now into AI, into artificial intelligence. We've had pornography out for a very long time. That's not a new thing. But that, again, it's not the real experience. It's a derivative of it, and it's a sin. We can extend the derivative concept not only from money. It starts from money, and that's where all the corruption comes from, because all the funding for all the corruption of everything, from pharmaceuticals to the military to everything, comes from money derivatives. So everything is a derivative. You cannot do that in the temple. You have to take the money, no derivative of money, no cash, no deposits, no options or stocks or bonds. It has to be silver. Now we're going to go into the Haftorah for this parsha. I'm trying to get this thing down so I can see okay, here it is. Yeshayahu. So this is the Haftorah for Re'eh. It's part of it, at least. So why did they pick this Haftorah? Why, Yeshayahu says a lot of comforting things. Why this? Well, let's read it. So it's Yeshayahu chapter Nun-Hey, chapter 55, verse 1. Hoi, kol tzameh l'chu l'mayim. V'asher ein lo kasef, l'chu shivru v'echlu l'chu shivru b'lo kasef. V'lo mechir yain v'chalav. So Yeshayahu says, everyone who's thirsty, come and drink water. And anyone who doesn't have any silver, go and buy anyway, with what is the question, and eat, and go and buy without money and with no price wine and milk. Why should you spend money on for nothing, on not even bread? And why should you expend your energy without satisfying yourselves? Shimusha, just listen to me and eat and enjoy and fill your souls. Okay, so the simple explanation, I don't mean the pshat here. I mean the simple explanation is the drush, that Yeshayahu is not talking about silver, he's not talking about food, and he's not talking about wine and milk. He's talking about Torah. That seems very clear because this is a poem. Okay, but even though the simple explanation of this is forget about money and just come to Yerushalayim to learn Torah and to be close to God and do it for free, right? This is going to be at the end times when everything is for free. So fine, I agree that that's what Yeshayahu is talking about. But the question is, how is this even possible, right? The sectioning off the time of the time of the Mashiach, or the times of redemption, as some kind of magical thing that just everything works out and there's no problems. Okay, you could say that, and I can't really argue with you, because everything will be as close to perfect as possible. But I want to understand more about how this works, right? It's not going to be a magical time where the laws of nature just don't apply anymore. So the same thing, the laws of economics will still apply in this era. And the question is, if the laws of economics still apply in this era, then how is it that we're going to be able to learn Torah or whatever it is that we need to do? How are we going to do that without money? Because you need money, you need prices in order to divide goods and services among people fairly. Otherwise, there'll just be shortages, and you'll just have crowds of people that are trying to get in for free, and they won't be able to because it'll be too crowded. Okay, so fine, I get how this is a poem, but how does it actually work out? Now we're going to go into a different story here from the Gemara. This is the big mistake that we made before. This is the story of Tisha B'Av, how it happened, how the destruction of the temple happened, and you can see that figuratively we could say that it's really our fault because we sinned and we did all these problems for ourselves. We acted irrationally, and then God punished us. You could see it that way, and that's true. But it's much more simple than that we destroyed ourselves in the most literal sense. And God set up the world that if we act this way, things are going to get destroyed. How did we act? What did we do? Well, we wantonly destroyed our own stuff. And here, literally, that's what happened. So here we have a story from Gittin, page Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph. And you might have read this story prior to Tisha B'Av or on Tisha B'Av. It's a very famous story from the Gemara. So it says here that let's up here. Okay, so we have this is when the siege of Jerusalem started. And the siege of Jerusalem started because of the debacle between Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, which I'm not going to get into that story now, but it eventually led to Emperor Nero being invited to sacrifice, and then the sacrifice being sabotaged, and then the sacrifice wasn't offered, and then he started to siege Jerusalem in what he thought was a rebellion. Fine. So we still had a chance to save the situation at that point. So what happened here? There were three rich people. Hava Buhu Hanhu Tlata Atire. There were three rich people. Nakdimun ben Gurion, ben Kava Savua, and ben Tzitzit HaKesed. Three very rich people in Jerusalem. Their names were Nakdimun ben Gurion, ben Kava Savua, and ben Tzitzit HaKesed. Explains what their names are. We'll skip that for a minute, for a second. We don't need to know their names or why they were named. These are nicknames, basically. So one rich guy said, while the siege was starting, Ana Zayena Lahu Bechite Usari. I'm going to provide wheat and barley for the people. Right? I'm going to give chamra, a drink, and salt and oil. This is very reminiscent of the stuff that we're supposed to bring to Jerusalem in the Maser, in the tithing. Very similar products. And one said, I'm going to supply the wood. Right? And wood is the most expensive because you need the most of it. You need it to cook. That was their fuel. They didn't have fossil fuels. They had wood. So you needed a lot of it, and it was a lot of money. Okay, so it says down here, there was enough. These three rich people had enough supplies to supply the city of Jerusalem for 21 years. So they would have lived out the siege and figured out what to do in the meantime. Right, that's enough time. The Havabuhu Hanhu Biryone. And now what happens? A Biryon, like it could be translated a warmonger, someone who really wanted to fight the Romans. They go to the Biryoni, the warmongering faction, and they say, Rabbanan. The Rabbanan said to the Biryoni, now let's make peace. Now we have 21 years of supplies. Let's figure out a way to negotiate our way out of this so we can save ourselves. Lo Shavkinu, he didn't like that idea. Amrlu Nipok Vinavid Kravabadaya. So the Biryoni says, no, we're going to fight. Right? Amrlu Rabbanan. The Rabbanan said, Lo Mistay Milta, we're not going to be able to win this. We can't win this. You have to be realistic. Kamu Kolonhu Lahanhu Ambari Dechite Usari Vahavakafna. So what did the Biryonim do? They sabotaged the wheat supply and they burned it all. And then it forced the people to fight because they no longer had any food. So now they were desperate. So the Biryonim put them in a desperate situation, and then they had to fight. So what's happening here is literally we sabotaged ourselves. It was a disgusting maneuver by the warmongers. It did not work out. And it's really the opposite of what's going on in Yeshayahu. So the practical question of Yeshayahu is, how do you have a world where there's no money and people don't have silver and they can go and get what they want anyway, whether it's literally milk and oil or whether it's Torah study, it's whatever good it is, it takes time, and time is money. So how do you do it? So I think the answer to that question is very simple from this story. The rich people in a time of crisis, in a time of siege, had enough money to supply the city with 21 years of goods and services, and they would have figured out a way out of it. So same now. How are you going to have a society where people can just come and learn without any money, without exchanging? Well, if you have enough stackers in the society that have a lot of gold and silver, that have a lot of money, and they understand that the people are in crisis and they need Torah and they need food and they don't have the money, then all you need in Israel is a few stackers. 3 rich people in all Jerusalem could have supplied the city for 21 years. And I think that gold and silver are going to be valuable enough that if we have a few stackers, even a few hundred or a few thousand in the country that have enough money to supply the people with what they need to learn, and once they understand that they can get close to God, that we can supply these things, it's what Isaiah is saying is we have to stack, right? I think he's not saying that literally. Like, I don't think that's what the point of the poem is, but if you read into it, that's really the only way that you can have a society where people don't have money, but it's working, right? You have enough people, few amount of people with enough money who foresaw this whole thing, and they have the resources and they can supply the city. We saw this, the story in Gittin itself. That was what was going to happen until the Biryonim destroyed it all. This time, we're not going to destroy it all. This time, we're going to let the rich people supply the poor people with what they need to learn and to eat and to get what they need in order for us to escape the crisis. And the last thing I want to go into here is the Abarbanel on Yeshayahu. So I'll go back to the tab, and we're going to go into Abarbanel here. I like this comment. Move this over here. Okay. Where is it? Okay. No, that's the wrong one. Abarbanel. Okay. So he says here, let's see. If I don't find it in a second, I'll just do it from memory. Okay, here it is. Kvar yadata shemilat kesef. I'm over here, I'm highlighting the word kesef. Hanchata rishona hi kosef v'tava mipnei shematechet hakesef yichasfu lakol. So the word comes from the word kosef, which means to desire or to demand, right? To supply and demand. Hatava, or the tava is drive or desire. Mipnei shematechet hakesef, because the metal of silver, the silver metal, yichasfuhu hakol. Everybody wants it. The demand for money is infinite, right? That's what makes it a money, that everybody wants it, because everybody wants it to trade. Because of the desire, because of the demander, it is money. So demand and money is the same thing, but that's the Austrian school principle of money really is liquidity, and liquidity is simply the fact that everyone demands it. The fact that everyone demands it all the time means that the difference is that its value changes in a very liquid way, in a very smooth way, which makes it the best commodity to trade with, right? So lesson 1, when we're back in the Geula times, I'm not saying that people can't trade for deposits or can't trade for cash or paper cash or some derivative of money. I still think that cash will be used. I don't think people are going to hold silver coins in their hands all the time. But derivatives, if they're not 100% substitutes for the actual thing, that's where you will get the source of theft. People will inflate however they inflate, and they will steal. I don't think that's going to be an issue in redemptive times, because the Yetzer Hara will be pushed down a little bit. It will still exist, but it won't be so overwhelming. But the point is that the temple is an institution, is a structure for getting rid of derivatives, whether it's derivatives in music or derivatives in food or derivatives in money. You have to use the real thing and get the physical as close to the spiritual as possible without crossing it over, and that's the challenge for the Jewish people, without going into Avodah Zarah. The second lesson is that I think Yeshayahu is talking about how the stackers are going to save the people by providing the goods and services they need when they are poor, to bring the people back together when everyone is destitute. There will be some rich people who will be able to save the people, just like it could have happened in the Second Temple times, but it was sabotaged. So we'll see what next week brings in terms of the Haftarah for the Shiva and Chemta. It is connected to the Parsha of Re'eh, and these Haftarah portions are not just picked haphazardly. And I wish us all a life free of derivatives of food, free of derivatives of medicine. If you need medicine, take real medicine. If you need to eat, have real food. If you need money, get real money. That's what I have to say.